The stars were bleeding. At least that's how it looked to Ambassador Varel as he stood alone in the glass chamber of the Alari Citadel. High above the dying surface of his homeworld, Kureth, the sky outside was full of drifting smoke. Glowing particles, burning ships, falling like broken feathers through the atmosphere. He could see the distant flashes where the Kirathi were feeding, massive, worm-like alien creatures that devoured power grids, neural networks, even thoughts. They had no voices, no diplomacy, just hunger. And now, after 15 cycles of resistance, the Alari were out of time. Cities had collapsed. Defense lines had shattered. Their once beautiful oceans boiled with radiation from failed fusion cores. And still, the Kirathi moved, unstoppable, crawling across the ruins like black serpents dragging silence behind them. Virel's own family had been lost 3 rotations ago, his bondmate dissolved in her sleep by a parasite mist, his daughter. Erased when the capital node flickered and went dead. He hadn't cried since. There was no time for it. Now he stood before the ancient beacon system technology older than his people's recorded history. It hadn't been activated in centuries, not since the fall of Vaeltros. It was meant for only one thing: begging. A galaxy-wide plea transmitted on all frequencies into all corners of space to anyone who could hear. It was a signal of last hope. And Varel knew what using it meant. It meant surrender, not to the Kirathi, but to the unknown. His long fingers trembled as he reached for the activation crystal. He hesitated for only 1 second, just long enough to whisper his people's name, and then pressed down. The chamber filled with blue light and the beacon began to pulse. He stepped forward, looked into the center eye, and began to speak. Knowing this message might be the last thing his species ever created. "This is Varel of Kureth," he said. "I speak for the Alari people. We have been struck by a force we cannot defeat. Our science has failed. Our shields are down. The Kirathi have overrun us. To anyone who hears this, please, help us. We offer knowledge, alliance, history. We have nothing else left to give." His voice cracked, but he did not stop. "We do not ask for conquest, only survival. If any species still remembers the old laws of unity, hear us. Oh, please, we are dying." And then the signal ended. The beacon went dark. The room fell silent. Viero waited. Hours passed. Nothing. Days passed. Still nothing. Across Kureth. More cities crumbled. More screams echoed through dust and fire. Other council species responded with formal condolences, pre-recorded messages filled with regret, but no action. The Vexri offered an evacuation only for high-ranking Alari. The Sierran Dominion sent a medical ship too small, too late. No one came to fight. No one dared face the Kirathi. And then, one night, the stars blinked. Varel saw it himself. Patch of sky black, still quiet, suddenly shifted. As if space had been folded like cloth, then torn open. Out of it came one ship. It didn't glide. It didn't shine. Fell like a blade. Long, dark, triangular, silent. No lights, no markings, just presence. It hovered above the southern hemisphere of Kureth. For 3 days, it did not move. It did not reply to hails. Alari satellites tried to scan it and failed. Surface was invisible to sensors. But on the 4th day, it did something. It spoke. Not in Alari tongue, not in code. In a voice. None of them had ever heard before. Deep, cold, human. "Your request has been received. Stand clear of target zone. I have 90 cycles. That was all. No signature, no demand, just warning." At first, the Alari commanders argued whether it was a threat. Some believed it was a trick from the Kirathi. Others thought it was an automated drone. But Virel felt something deeper, something ancient. He ordered all nearby cities evacuated. They barely managed to pull out half the civilians when the 90 cycles ended. On the edge of the horizon, the sky turned gold. Then it split open. The black ship fired once. No sound. No flash. Just a beam, a ripple of gravity and plasma. Moving like a spear, it struck the heart of the Kirathi hive. And in that instant, everything changed. The ground shook. Clouds burned. Oceans pulled themselves backward. The Kirothi screamed not from mouths, but from the fabric of space itself. And then they were gone, not defeated, erased, wiped from Kareth's surface, like dust blown. From glass? But so was everything else. The capital, the communication towers, the southern hemisphere. Gone, just ash and smoke. Varel stood on the last surviving tower, wind rushing through broken beams, and stared at the sky. The ship remained, above, watching. Still no message, still no signal, just silence. Ilari survivors emerged from bunkers speechless. They were alive, yes, but the price was everything. Virel climbed the highest platform and activated his private console. To the ship above Kareth, he said, "You destroyed our enemy, but you destroyed our world. Why? For hours, nothing came." Then the voice returned, cold, measured. "Your message did not ask for protection. It asked for help. We helped." Virel wanted to scream, to curse, to demand. But instead, he whispered, "Who are you?" The answer came in 3 words. "We are Earth." And then the ship turned. Not quickly, not dramatically, just simply it vanished the same way it had come, folding space around itself until it became part of the darkness again. Gone, Virel fell to his knees, staring at the empty sky. The galaxy had heard their cry. But what had come was not an army, not a rescue, not a friend. What came was something far older, far colder, something that did not forgive, did not wait, did not negotiate, had learned to fight in silence and strike without hesitation. Humanity had answered, and Kareth would never be the same again. The ashes of Kareth had not yet cooled when the second ship arrived. For 8 cycles, the survivors wandered in disbeliefs, searching for anything left that resembled their past. The Ilari were a people of structure, of peace, of order, but their order had been reduced to craters and shattered bones. Virel had not spoken since the day the black ship vanished into the stars. He had nothing left to say. His message had been answered, and what came was not salvation, it was obliteration. Entire histories lost, archives erased. Even the wind had changed, now dry and bitter, as if the planet itself mourned. But on the 8th cycle, the stars bent again, not torn open. Bent like space itself had remembered something and was adjusting. From that silent curve came a new shape, smaller than the first ship, but still dark, still unnatural, still human. It did not hover. It landed hard. Right where the old council hall had once stood, the Ilari trembled. Some screamed. Others fell to the ground in fear. But Virel stood and walked toward the smoke, his robe still torn, his face still covered in dried blood. He did not walk with courage. He walked because he had nothing left to lose. The ship opened not with fanfare or weapons, but with a hiss like steam escaping from an old wound. And out stepped a human, female, tall, pale, dressed in simple black armor that shimmered like oil under dying light. She carried no weapon. But her eyes, those cold, unblinking human eyes, were more terrifying than any blade. "You are Virel," she said, without question. "I am." His voice was barely a whisper. "I bring confirmation," she said. "The Kirathi have been extinguished. Their queen, hive disintegrated, secondary nest tracked and destroyed." She paused. "You are safe." Virel clenched his fists. "Safe. Look around. This is not safety. This is extinction with a different name." The human nodded, as if expecting his anger. "Your species lives. Your world can rebuild." He stepped closer. "At what cost?" "Necessary one," she said coldly. "You asked for help. This is how Earth helps." Virel stared at her in disbelief. "You didn't ask what we wanted. You didn't ask how much we could afford to lose. You decided for us." "Yes," she replied, "because had we waited for your consent, you'd be dead." The words hit him like a physical blow. The Ilari watching from the wreckage were frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. Virel felt the familiar bitterness return, the helplessness of diplomacy, the pain of loss. "Why?" he asked, voice cracking. "Why fight like this? Such finality?" The human's expression didn't change. "Because we come from a planet where mercy was punished, where hesitation meant death. We evolved through fire, betrayal, and war. Our enemies never gave us time, so we stopped asking for it." She stepped aside and pointed toward the sky. "The galaxy talks, we act. So you burn first and ask questions later," Virel asked. "We burn so there are no more questions," she said. "So no one ever dares to threaten us, so those who ask us for aid." He looked into her eyes and saw it something deeper than hatred. A cold calculation. Earth had not just grown strong, they had grown untouchable. Virel's knees weakened. He sat among the rubble, eyes staring into the scorched sky. "You say we are safe," he whispered. "But now I fear you more than I feared the Kirathi." The woman tilted her head, not in offense, but in understanding.
I'm good.
Said, "Fear keeps borders intact." Virel looked up. "So is that why you returned? To make us fear you?" "No," she replied. "We return because fear alone dies, but memory endures." She walked forward and handed him a cube. Small, cold, glowing blue. "Inside is everything you lost, scanned from orbit before the strike. Your records, your maps, your culture. Ask for help. We preserved your species, but we also preserved your soul." She stepped back. "Don't waste it." And then she turned around, walked into her ship, and closed the ramp behind her. No guards. No threats, just silence. The ship lifted into the sky without sound, then vanished beyond Kareth's broken clouds. Virel stared at the cube in his hand. He activated it. Holograms flickered to life around him, images of Alari history, art, voices of long-dead scientists and poets. Earth had not saved the planet, but they had saved the idea of the Alari, a copy of their essence stored and protected. Even while their cities burned, Virel finally understood. Earth did not fight to conquer. They fought to prevent repetition. And to them, anything less than total devastation would risk it all happening again. But something deeper haunted him now. Not what the humans had done, but how easily they had done it. How coldly, how efficiently. Earth had not hesitated. They had decided. And now, the Alari were alive. Yes, but they were no longer proud. They were survivors of a rescue that looked like war. Virel stood in silence, surrounded by ghosts made of light. He turned to the others, his people waiting behind rubble and hope. "We asked for help," he said, his voice echoing across the ruins. "And we were helped. Remember that. Remember all of it. Because from that day forward, the Alari would rebuild. But never forget. Not the Kirathi. Not the black ships. Not the woman who gave them their memories back. And not the message. Humanity left without saying a word. If we fight for you, we will finish the fight for better or worse." The Galactic Council was not used to fear. For thousands of cycles, it had ruled from the shining spires of Velneri Prime, a Labuth, far above the conflicts that rattled lesser species. Its members proud, polished, evolved watched wars like storms. On distant planets, tragic but far removed, they passed laws, debated trade, measured threats in charts and speeches. But on the 93rd day after the cleansing of Kareth, when the human warship entered council space without permission, without escort, and without a word, the council chambers went silent for the first time in living memory. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. Protocol required months of negotiation, warning signals, identity scans. But the ship didn't stop at the border, didn't request clearance. It simply arrived floating above Velneri like a shadow with purpose. Black, seamless, silent. The planetary defense grid powered up instantly, alarms ringing through every dome. But before a single turret could lock on, they all shut down. Just like that. Power grids dead. Communications frozen. Satellites blinded. The capital, home to 50 million of the galaxy's most powerful beings, was defenseless in under 3 seconds. And then, as if to make the moment last forever, the ship broadcast one single message, in perfect council dialect. Permission not requested. Presence not negotiable. No threats, no weapons, just fact. The council scrambled. Delegates screamed over each other. Security demanded orders. Diplomats panicked. Even the immortal Sathari delegate, who hadn't moved in 500 years, stood up in fear. They summoned emergency protocols. They activated vault contingencies, but there was nothing they could do, because the humans were already landing. A small vessel detached from the mothership and descended straight into the heart of the council square. No fanfare, no lights, no guards. It's just a silver ramp and one figure. The same human woman who had spoken to Virel on Kareth. She walked into the great hall without asking. The guards aimed weapons, but froze. Not because of her, because of what followed her, a floating drone. Black as obsidian, humming with gravitational force that twisted light. The council chamber, built to intimidate kings and break lesser species, suddenly felt cold and small. The woman walked to the center and placed a cube on the floor. "This is the data from Kareth," she said, "requested by the emergency tribunal. The council presidenta, four-armed Salkari, with skin like polished glass, tried to speak but stuttered. "We did not authorize." "You did," she said coldly. "You ratified Resolution 114. All distress calls must be archived, processed, and responded to, if deemed credible. But not like this," the archivist from the Frin Collective said. "We assumed negotiation, not total planetary correction." The human didn't blink. "We did not come to negotiate. We came because you would not." The hall shook with voices, demands, accusations, panic. But she waited, silent as stone, until the room quieted again. "You let the Kirathi spread for decades," she continued. "You observed their destruction. You chose delay over action." So we responded, with finality. Zarkin delegate hissed. "You are not part of this council." "Correct," she replied. "We do not wish to be." "Then why come here?" Varn diplomat snapped. "To threaten us." She finally looked up, her voice lower, now deadly quiet. "Remind you what happens when you delay too long? Kareth is a warning, but not from us, from your own inaction." She walked toward the council's central table and pressed a second cube. Holograms flared to life, images of the Kirathi devouring cities. Lari children burning in spores, black storms swallowing oceans. "This is what we ended," she said. "This is what you did not." The delegates fell silent, their pride wilting like leaves under frost. The images kept looping. Death, desperation, silence. And then Earth's strike, the flash, the cleansing, the black ship hovering over smoke. The room was still. It's not one being dared to breathe. The human tapped the last cube. A final hologram rose. Single sentence. Simple, inevitable. "If you ask us for help, be sure you understand what help means." She turned. "We will leave now." "Wait," the council president called out. There must be a process in agreements. Something we can." She stopped at the door. Her back turned. The galaxy made its decision a long time ago. Chose diplomacy over defense. Debate over action. Delay over survival. We chose differently, and with that, she walked out. The drone followed. The chamber remained frozen, even after the human vessel lifted into the sky and vanished. Long after their ship left orbit, the council sat in stunned silence, staring at the words still hanging in the air. For the first time in history, they realized something terrifying. Humanity didn't need the council. Humanity didn't want the council. And if pushed, humanity would burn the galaxy to save one child from screaming in the dark. And so, the most powerful beings in the stars sat back down, not in dominance, but in fear. Because on that day, the council shook, and the galaxy remembered, far beyond the reach of council territories. Hidden behind fractured moons and plasma storms, there was a planet that should not have survived. Its name was Torvin Five, a toxic, war-torn world abandoned by nearly every species in the galaxy after. Its surface turned into a graveyard of failed civilizations. For 200 years, Torvin Five had been written off, a place where machines devoured their creators, where biological weapons had learned to think, and where no peace ever lasted more than a season. The Council labeled it a dead zone. Aid missions were sent. No peacekeepers were deployed, just orbiting warning beacons repeating in every galactic language: do not land, do not engage, do not survive. But one day, the warnings went silent. No explosion, no signal, just silence. The beacons stopped transmitting at the same moment. A black dot appeared in Torvin's upper orbit, a human vessel. It hovered like all others, still and quiet. No requests for landing, no declaration of war, no speeches, just presence. Council probes scrambled. Satellites watched. Historians debated whether Earth had made a mistake. But deep down, no one believed it was an error, 'cause Earth didn't make mistakes like that. And 3 days later, the planet itself changed. Clouds shifted, storms ended. For the first time in 2 centuries, the red lightning above Torvin Five stopped. The skies cleared. The Council waited for data. But everything coming from the surface was blocked until the Alari received a single encrypted file from a known Earth frequency. When decrypted, it was only a sentence, followed by a visual stream. Correction complete. The stream showed a full scan of Torvin Five's surface. No more radiation zones. No more autonomous war engines. No more mutated bioforms. All gone. The weapons were gone. The wars were gone. Even the endless battles between rogue AI factions had vanished. But so had millions of life forms, not just the dangerous ones. Entire species wiped out. Cities turned to clean craters. Technology flattened into smooth metal disks. The planet looked new, like it had been restarted. And in the center of its largest continent stood something the galaxy had never seen before: a human-made monument. A stone pillar, 50 meters tall, with a single phrase engraved in every major council language. It read, "Peace is not asked for. Peace is enforced." No one claimed responsibility. No captain, no name, no flag. But everyone knew who did. Earth had acted. Again. Quietly. Permanently. Some species called it a miracle. Others called it genocide. But no one dared follow. No one dared protest, because they knew what it meant. Earth wasn't waiting for wars to reach their borders. They were hunting them down before they could start. And if a planet became a breeding ground for chaos, Earth would decide whether it deserved to continue. Torvin Five had been a living nightmare. Now it was peaceful, empty, clean, controlled. And this terrified the galaxy more than anything else. Because it meant Earth had protocols not just for defense, but for prevention. They didn't wait to be called. They didn't wait for laws. They acted when the math told them the future was at risk. Virel, watching from his rebuilt observatory on Kareth, stared at the Torvin images with a heavy heart. He had hoped Earth would return to silence, that the incident on Kareth was a one-time answer. But now he saw the truth. Earth had changed its nature. Or perhaps it had always been this way. That was simply revealing itself. Quiet corrections, silent enforcements, and no negotiations. Torvin had become a symbol, not of mercy, but of control. A world that had gone too far, erased and rewritten, not through diplomacy, but through absolute certainty. A message to the rest of the stars: we will not wait to be invited again. In the deep corners of the galaxy, whispers began. Feared Earth would become an empire. Others said they were already something worse, a force of nature. Not a government, not a nation, but a correction algorithm wrapped in flesh and steel. And still, the humans didn't speak. They didn't explain. They simply acted. Quietly, swiftly, with terrifying calm. And while the galaxy debated their morality, the question that began to rise was darker, colder, more honest. What happens when Earth decides that we're the next planet that shouldn't survive? It began as a whisper on the outer channels, a low-priority signal bouncing across. Forgotten satellites and abandoned listening posts? At first, no one noticed. The council dismissed it as background radiation or a ghost transmission from some long-dead outpost. But then it repeated, clear, sharp, deliberate, and this time every frequency across the galactic spectrum lit up at once. From the mineral moons of the Varn to the cloud cities of the Salkari, the message broke through every firewall, bypassed every security net, and overrode every command chain. It didn't ask for permission. It didn't ask to be heard. It demanded. It across thousands of worlds, billions of eyes, turned toward screens, projections, and old radios that hadn't worked in centuries. Because the voice that spoke didn't come from a politician or a military officer. It came from a human, calm, quiet, and terrifyingly precise. This is not a warning, the voice began. This is not a threat. This is a message. We are from Earth. You asked us for help? Some of you begged. Some of you remained silent. Others laughed. We came anyway. The voice paused and the galaxy held its breath. We found planets asking for peace while breeding chaos. We found leaders shaking hands while building weapons. We found governments too afraid to act, too proud to admit they waited too long. So we acted for you, because your rules are too slow, your debates are too soft. The price of your delay is always paid by those with no voice. Screens across space flickered with images caressed in flames, the Kirathi being wiped. From orbit, the smooth, glassy plains of Torvin 5 after the cleansing. The voice returned. You will question our methods. You will call it violence. Violence is what happens when action comes too late. We don't believe in late. The galaxy was frozen. Every council chamber, every control room, even pirate. Fleets and black market syndicates stopped, staring at the images unfolding, because there was no demand, no call for surrender, just truth, spoken with the calmness of a machine and the conviction of a people who had clawed their way through. Extinction more than once. We will not govern you. We will not ask for tribute. We will not attend your councils. We are not here to join. We are here to end the cycle. Then came the part that chilled even the oldest empires. The voice slowed, almost gentle.
Right.
Your planet is safe. If your people are united, if your future is free, this message is not for you. But if you build death in secret, if you feed on the weak, if your leaders lie while your citizens scream, then know this. We are already watching. We do not send threats. We send correction. The message ended with one final sentence. Delivered in complete silence across every star, Earth remembers what it means to be ignored. Then all screens went black. The transmission vanished. No origin, no trace. Just the echo of those words lingering in the minds of billions. Council members collapsed in fear. Empires paused their fleets. Warlords canceled invasions. On some, planets' riots ended within minutes. On others, tyrants were removed by their own people, too afraid of becoming the next Torvin 5. In one solar system, a violent slaver ring surrendered without a fight, broadcasting their own coordinates too. Empty space. No human ships ever arrived. They didn't have to. The message had done more than weapons ever could. It shifted the galaxy's balance not through war, but through certainty. A certainty that Earth would act. A certainty that no plea went unheard, and no crime went unpunished, not because of law, but because of memory, on Earth's memory. Was long on Kureth. Virel stood on the new high tower, rebuilt from Alari metal and human alloy. He stared at the stars, the message still ringing in his ears. Around him, the survivors of his people gathered not in panic, but in silence. Not because they were afraid, but because they understood.
Oh.
They remembered their screams, and they remembered who answered them. Earth had not given them a choice, but it had given them a second chance. And now, as that human voice whispered, across the universe like a ghost through time, Virel knew what the future would sound like. It would not be decided by the loudest empire, or the richest species. It would be decided by the one voice that never shouted, but always acted. Had spoken, the stars had listened, and everything had changed. There had always been those who whispered that Earth was not unstoppable, that the black ships were just machines, that their silence was a bluff. And while most of the galaxy fell into obedience or silence, there was one species that refused to kneel: the Dravari Dominions. Known for their cold intellect and genetically enhanced soldiers, the Dravari had never lost a war in 600 years. They ruled 12 star systems, turned suns into weapons, and believed emotion was a weakness. So when Earth's message shook the stars, the Dravari High Commander scoffed. "They act like gods," he told his generals, "but bleed like mortals." The Dominion had received Earth's message like everyone else, but unlike the others, they answered not with fear, but with defiance. They hacked an old deep space relay and sent a response to the last known human ship. Their message was short: "Come, if you dare. We will bury your protocol beneath our stars." For 5 days, there was no reply. The galaxy held its breath. Some called the Dravari insane. Others admired their bravery. But many secretly hoped Earth would stay silent, for if Earth responded, they knew something irreversible would follow. On the 6th day, a single human vessel entered Dominion space. It didn't cloak. It didn't speak. It simply flew straight toward the Dravari homeworld. The Dominion sent 42 warships to intercept. The black ship didn't fire. It just kept moving. When the Dravari opened fire with their most powerful fusion cannons, the human ship stopped, and every Dominion warship shut down all at once. Engines offline, weapons offline, crew members screaming as neural links fried and command systems melted into static. No explosions, no death, just helpless silence in the cold dark. And then, in a move no one understood, the human vessel transmitted an image, one that broadcast across the Dominion, the Council, and every system listening. It showed the Dravari High Commander alive, but kneeling in a prison cell of white light, hands trembling, eyes wide with a fear no soldier had ever seen in him. A voice followed, the same calm human voice from the original message. "Invited correction. You are receiving it." Then the signal cut. Within hours, every Dominion weapon satellite deactivated. Every drone fleet stopped responding. Entire planetary defense grids collapsed without a shot. Earth didn't burn their cities, didn't destroy their worlds. Instead, it shut down their ability to make war. Forever, the Dravari found that their best minds could no longer build destructive code. Their scientists, genetically enhanced for war, began forgetting how to invent new weapons. Their factories refused to start. Code had changed. Earth had rewritten their war logic. Not with bombs, but with something deeper, more terrifying. A mind virus embedded in their systems, their satellites, their AI cores, something Earth had planted long ago, waiting. The galaxy reeled in disbelief. The Council tried to explain it as a psychological warfare tactic, but the truth was much simpler and more terrifying. Earth had known the Dravari would resist, and Earth had planned for it before the challenge was ever issued. What terrified the other empires most wasn't the shutdown itself. It was the realization that Earth had already infiltrated everyone. The Dravari thought they were secure. Their systems were their pride. Their arrogance was their defense. But it had made them predictable. And Earth didn't just fight enemies, they studied them. The protocol didn't need to fire missiles. It simply needed time. And time was always on Earth's side. As the Dravari Dominion collapsed into quiet submission, their citizens confused and their armies silent, Earth sent one final message: this is not war. This is the end of war. From that day, the Dravari became something the galaxy had never seen. A superpower without weapons. A military empire that could no longer conquer. Their ships still flew. Their cities still stood. Once posed had been erased not violently, but permanently. Earth had delivered a correction, not through destruction, but through preparation. They had waited, watched, and when the moment came, they acted not in anger, but in absolute, unshakable precision. Across the stars, other warlike species began to purge their weapon labs. Tyrants canceled military projects, even pirate clans. Dismantled their fleets, afraid that Earth might already be inside their systems, too just waiting. the legend grew. Earth didn't destroy. Earth disabled, and for many, that was far worse, 'cause fire could be rebuilt. But fear lingered. And every species now lived with the question, are we already infected too? Are we next? No one knew when the last human ship left council space. There were no farewell speeches, no closing meetings, just silence. One moment they were watching, and the next they were gone. No tracking beacons, no broadcasts, as if Earth itself had vanished behind the stars. At first, the galaxy celebrated quietly. Fear faded into caution. The Dravari rebuilt their cities, though without weapons. The council resumed its old debates, though voices trembled more than before. Across thousands of systems, the question no longer was where is Earth, but rather, why are they silent? Then, exactly 1 year after the fall of the Dravari Dominion, on the day known as the Galactic Unity Summit, a signal came through. It wasn't intercepted. It wasn't sent through hidden channels. It was everywhere at once. A final message. A final voice. Earth's last broadcast. Every screen across every planet turned black. Every device froze, no matter its power. Even organic neural nets shut down. The stars themselves seemed to dim as the message began. A face appeared, not human, not AI, something in between. Ageless, calm, and behind that face, only darkness. No flag, no ship, just presence. And then the voice spoke. We were never meant to rule you. The words were slow, clear, without pride. We came because you asked, not with words, but with silence, with delay. Screams you thought we wouldn't hear. Behind the voice, flashes of history appeared, Kurith burning. Children crying inside broken ships, planets lost while the council counted votes. You waited until it was too late, we answered. Not because we are righteous, but because we remember what it feels like to be forgotten. The voice paused, and the face blinked once. But now, we will not return. The words hit harder than any missile. Stars seem to stop moving. We have shown you what survival costs, what peace demands. What happens when delay becomes death? If you understand now, then we have done our part. Images of the protocol flowed across the screen, its cold laws, its brutal logic. But instead of threats, the images faded into stars, into peace, into systems healing. You feared us because we acted, because we didn't ask permission. But we didn't come to conquer. We came to ensure no child dies unseen again. Not by your hand, not by ours. And then one final image. Earth itself, blue, whole, beautiful. Quiet, no weapons, no fleets, no visible cities. Just a living planet wrapped in clouds. The voice returned, now softer. We are going dark. We will not respond. We will not interfere. If you build peace, you will never see us again. But if you awaken the scream again, if the weak beg and no one answers, then remember what we did with silence. The screen began to fade, but the voice spoke once more, slower, colder, final. We are Earth, and we never forget. Then nothing. No code, no signal, no sound. Earth went dark. No ships, no messages. Nothing crossed the stars again in their name. Some believed they had entered hibernation. Others believed Earth had ascended, left the galaxy behind, bored or disgusted. But the most terrifying belief spread quietly, that Earth was still watching. Invisible, unreachable, waiting. Across the stars, flags changed. Laws rewrote themselves. The Council passed new charters to respond to planetary cries within hours, not years. War budgets shrank. Peace accords spread faster than ever before, not from virtue but from fear, from memory, and from the quiet. Truth, no one could deny. Earth had rewritten the future, then disappeared into it. Somewhere, perhaps in the void between galaxies, they still existed. A people made of iron and ghosts. A civilization that didn't build empires, but ended collapse. The stars moved on, but never the same. Children were taught not just about history or science, but about the silence, the time Earth stopped speaking. And in every school, One question echoed louder than any lesson. If Earth ever speaks again, what will it say?